You want to stop doing all that because we're alive. Now everything's good. Everything's perfect right now.
See, now we're live and it's still saying pages unresponsive. You can wait for them to become responsive or exit the pages.
We just went live literally 4 seconds ago.
What is this Muse? Where is this at? Oh, hold on a minute. Let's get off this page here. Maybe it's that. I was looking at that meditative headset. Remember, we were that conference call we had earlier with that.
Okay.
What was her name? Rachel. No, okay. Michelle.
All right. So I can see it live on the podcast page, but on the homepage, I'm still suffering from not seeing us live. For everyone who's, now we're live. Oh, I have that. I have pre-live.
You have to refresh your page.
I've done it. I did last time 12 times. So for everyone joining us early, if you are on with us early, this is us pre-living it. So thank you. One person has joined us already. And that's great. Thank you. We are going to start the show here in just a minute. In fact, right now. It's technically 8. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the intro if you're good. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
This is what we want to do. We want to get this down for everyone. Our one viewer has left.
Down to the second technical difficulties. Like it's as soon as I think I have literally been set up since 4 o'clock, like ready. I'm like, everything's set up, worked out the kinks, ready to go.
Yeah.
And it is down to the second I'm like clicking and like doing and trying to figure things out. And I'm like,
I like that you had a straight up battle with your mic and that you may have lost. I'm not sure.
Are you kidding? I don't, first of all, I don't lose. And second of all, I obviously won. Do you see how sturdy and straight it is? Because it's on the other side of the table.
Yeah, I do. It's clearly you've won. There's no, yeah. Thank you, Enzo. We are live on YouTube. Thank you. Yes. All of it is down to the last second. So as far as you joining us, thank you very much. And we are, I think, we're getting better at working out kinks. So you did good. You won. Battle mic.
Well, we kind of threw ourselves into this, if we're being honest. I mean, it was like we came back from Belize talking about doing this last year, right? And then we got all the stuff to get it done, but then, if we're honest, both of our lives just kind of went to shit. And when that happened, everything just kind of took a back seat, for a minute, and until we were both able to get to a certain point where we could do this.
Yeah, you're right.
And here we are. Now we're doing the thing, and we didn't want to wait anymore. We've been talking about it for so long. We were ready to just jump in and do this thing, and so here we are. What is this, episode 6 that we've done on our own? 7 of our own.
8. Oh my gosh, we're almost up to 10.
Oh my gosh!
And
you
know what? We've been doing this, guys, for we're going to talk about a lot of fun stuff tonight. We're going to talk about our expeditions coming up. We're going to do the news. We're going to do a lot of things. But right now, this is just a chance for us to say hi to everyone. And actually, we have a lot to say about everything, and we wanted to share that. So part of this podcast is just you getting in our heads with us on the lounger that we've provided. Green and tufted, right? I think that's the preferred.
That's the
launch.
preferred. Okay. Green and tufted. That's preferred. Emerald, to be exact. Green tufted. If anybody listening knows where I can find like an old-fashioned green tufted sofa, especially if it's a sectional.
I guess I've never seen a sectional tufted sofa.
From like a long time ago. I haven't either, but I was just thinking how cozy and comfy that would be. What if it was a sectional? I mean, I'm sure they made sectionals back then.
Why don't we build one?
Because then it's not antique.
We can antique it. Antique.
Make it look old?
We can distress it. like Pottery Barn. It's distressed.
Do you know how to build furniture?
Oh yeah, I've been looking into it forever. I have two really nice HTL lounge chairs that I've been wanting to redo, and they're in a friend's garage. And
No, I
I
mean like from scratch though. I mean
oh
it's
yeah,
one thing to like reupholster something. It's completely different to just start with like a
wood.
pile of lumber and
Yeah,
some, screw guns and go at it.
not build like a wooden lawn chair. Yes.
Yeah, I built a headboard once. Like
Oh,
a king size tufted black
oh,
and gold headboard. It was black tufted with gold, like,
that's got to be
you
pretty.
know, it was really, it was very pretty. The only thing I didn't like about it is it showed dust. So it was like one of
Oh yeah,
those that you
a
had to
black.
dust. Yeah. And it was tufted. So it was difficult to dust inside, the tuft.
Well, you saw that wood panel one I made with the lighting in it. That I
No.
showed you that one. I showed you one
Oh,
where
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and it had lighting. I had LED lighting in it, so the panels there were basically it was wood flooring, but it was like in and out, and
Hmm.
so the lighting went behind it. It was really cool. It was fun to build. A couple $100, $250, $250, bunch of my time, heavy as hell. I
Oh, okay. Speaking of building things, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we talk about like serious historical matters for like a second? Because this is driving me nuts. This whole Tartarian business,
okay.
it's just driving me nuts. I'm like, first of all, where did they go? Somebody like smoted them out. I don't understand why we're where are they part of the 1,000 years of history that we're missing? And
Yeah.
also,
Okay.
why were they on to something? Because if we look at like their architecture versus our modern architecture, we're lacking severely.
Yeah.
And so it appears to me like maybe their architecture was designed to, just like we've had conversations on other shows before about like synesthesias. Like,
Yeah.
isn't that how you say that?
Synesthesia. Yeah. You were right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay. So, what if they were designed to enhance the human body, to support the human body emotionally, physically, spiritually? What if they were designed energetically with certain
Yeah.
frequencies to help us heal and stay healthy and age properly and,
Yeah.
like
Curious if we're
be
sick
happy?
or harmonize us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is that why? Like because it seems to me like there was just so much more behind that civilization. Well, where did they go? What happened to them?
I don't think they disappeared. I think that it's cultures that we look at and we go, oh, they're Minoan or they're Greek, or when we get out towards Mongolia or all through Russia, we just credit different cultures like Cossacks. It's like, oh, mysterious, the Cossacks and how badass and warrior like they are. But the reality is that we have an empire that is spanning multiple continents, and it's clearly architecturally similar, but genetically, I think it involved a lot of descendants that are now credited to being with other, like more. We're in the West, so here's the problem: everything we're talking about is Western. I'm saying that because if we were in Russian, if we were looking at YouTube in Russia, if we were looking at the different people that are doing research in the East, there's an awareness of not only the megalithic structures but Tartaria and how it may relate to that. Again, it wasn't that we have 1,000 years of history we're missing. They just wrote in 1,000 years that did not exist. They just added it,
Hmm.
and it's like,
Hmm.
okay, but okay, so that's a thing. That's like why that thing. But I often wonder about the Tartarian. Here's the thing: are the Tartarians really like the first Greeks or Romans in that they were a contemporary culture of surviving, like, so let's say it's post flood and Tartaria predates Sumeria, and it was this almost global empire, and they fell apart. But if it's post Younger Dryas, if it's post biblical flood, are we still talking about a culture of humans that survived some ass kicking in the flood, they find all the ruins, or are they really responsible? Were Tartarians responsible for building these complex biohacking or biointegrating architectures, or did the Tartarians we think of that are on the map of Tartaria, are they more like the Egyptians? They came across these megalithic and these advanced ruins, and then Tartaria
Yeah,
itself.
but it's not them who? If not
Yeah,
them, who?
right. So then who was building synesthesia enhancing visually like, instead of seeing a commercial externally, I mean, if you could visualize a smell, a color, music, I mean, is the architecture itself speaking to you?
But
And
I think those are things that we're learning now, though.
right. So who would have built that architecture to begin with? The complexity of the Corinthian columns and the how it would have functioned in a integrated biohuman environment. So are we now talking pre-flood? Are we talking about the original builders being somebody 15 or 20,000 years ago? I mean, are they not a contemporary Tartarian, somewhere around some pre-Roman, pre-Greek, the people we mysteriously call Minoans? Are they all part of the Greeks? Are they really the last remnants of what was Tartaria? Because so Plato always quotes Solon, the Greek, about Atlantis. So all the stories about Atlantis come from Solon, and Solon was 700 years or so before Plato. And sorry, guys, for anyone getting technical, I don't remember it's 300 or 700. I think it was 700 years earlier. So Solon's in Egypt, and the Egyptians go, "You Greeks are old, and you forgot your past." So then you got to wonder, it's like, okay, so are the Greeks like Plato and Solon 700 years earlier? Are the Greeks themselves really the last remnants of anybody who kind of even had a hint as to knowing that they were Tartarians? So does that mean that they're just
What happened to all of their information?
right?
What happened to their libraries? What happened to their texts? What happened to their history? What happened?
Well, what if it was? So I wonder about this, right? And I don't speculate about this much, actually, despite all the times I've talked about it on shows. It's like we're actually doing it kind of new. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't it be integrated in a bio memory? We can pass memories down. We can pass memories down. Why can't we do it with information, collective human consciousness? What if it was just all stored solid state, just like solid state drives in computing? What if it's not something that would have been in a book? It just would have been integrated.
You think it's something we can access now?
Oh, definitely. I think we could collectively download it. Everyone's going to have to excuse me. I need to grab a bottle of water, which is right off the computer screen. I don't know how.
Is there something stuck in your throat?
Yeah, there is. And let me grab this and contemplate Tartaria for 20 seconds.
You have to wonder what happened to people like that. I don't understand like how the architecture looked the way that it did, and ours is just so meh, you know, dull. And is it a coincidence that all the bells got melted down for the war? I think not. We don't have to get into the bells though.
No.
Are you okay?
Okay. Oh, it's Dark Hour Paranormal. Hey, Michael. Yes, he tried calling me twice today. And I'm sorry, Michael, I did not get back to you because I was preoccupied. So now that I don't have a frog in my throat, apologize. That was odd. But hey, Tartaria. Collective information not being stored, or for instance, like if you're a synth elite, if you have synesthesia and you have all of them. Like right now, people get credited with one or two, or there's been a few people they found that have all the abilities, right? Which is great. So you see a column like that, and I really want to find a synth elite. We really have to do this actually, because we brought it up
Oh,
before.
that's a good idea. If you are listening and you are one, please contact us.
Yeah, we need to put you. No one, I don't think anyone's ever done it. No one's ever talked to one and said, "Hey, what do you think of this column if you look at it?" Or what do you hear?
Yeah.
What do you smell? And there's a thing. These things obviously were painted. They didn't look just like they did now, but they were painted in contemporary times. And contemporary, I mean, like if they're 2,000 or 1,000 years old, that's a contemporary time. If they were older, maybe they were gold plated. Maybe they had different material on them, that material technology that we think of on films that are on floors or on our surfaces of our, we think of a solid thing like our phone cases, but they're not solid. Sometimes there's like films and covers that are just nano thin. And you got to wonder, what would these columns have looked like, or what would this architecture have been if it wasn't just painted, if it was some sort of active nano material. And I say nano because it could be the thinnest layers. It could be multiple layers. It could be multiple layers of multiple things. They've already done tattoos that, so you have a tattoo, it looks like a tattoo, but they've already experimented. This is like a decade ago with the idea of embedding information. So basically your credit card information within your tattoo, and you could just scan it. Oh, thank you, Rex. Why is our video so much better here? I don't know. Probably because you're not.
Here's our mind.
I think all of our video. I don't know. But yeah, you got to wonder if there's I'm really up on this. So for everyone listening, we need synth elites that can come on with us. And I think we can just start with, we should live like grab some of these Corinthian columns and some of this architecture of Tartaria or Greek or Mongolia. We should pull all of it together and see what they feel and see and think about it.
He said nanobots, man. Let's get a nanobot expedition.
It's
How much?
the vacations in your mind, basically.
It's already there. What's gonna happen?
Okay. Yeah,
Just gonna reach up into the ether and grab it out.
I think it'd be funner to go, but whatever. So the I don't know. What are your thoughts on? There's I don't know. Do you think about Tartaria as far as like we should figure it out, or is it more like where does your brain go when you think about it?
There was a civilization that was really advanced, and I think that their architecture was really advanced, and I think there's something behind it. And so I think that there's a reason why, like, why does such an advanced, enormous civilization just break apart?
Yeah.
What happened, to them, and what happened to all of the information, and why is that not something that's discussed in the history books? I didn't learn about that in history. Did you?
No. It's in fact the only references you see for Tartaria are Russian or Eastern European. They seem to have some maps about it. That's it.
I didn't learn that in world history. I don't even remember learning anything in world history. No offense to all the coaches that taught me history, but
actually, I want to ask you about that, because I think that's a great example about what everyone went through. How bad did they make? I don't even know how to frame the question. How do they? I know what you said. Could you expand on why? Why was history? Why was it bad? Like,
because it was just like, read this section, because first of all, it was taught by mainly coaches who didn't give a shit. They were just there to coach. They weren't really there to teach, so they're just meeting whatever basic standards they have to meet to,
okay,
get through the day.
okay,
And
so
so it's like read this chapter,
okay,
answer the questions at the end of the chapter, and then we do that for so many weeks, and then we take a big unit test over the facts, basically. Like, I had a professor when I was working on my undergrad, a history professor, and he was very, like, he would shut the door at 8 o'clock. If you were not there, the door was locked. I mean, he meant business, right? And so one day, because I had kids, and one day knew I was going to be a few minutes late. And so I was I lived an hour away from the school. So I called him and got him in the office. And I was like, please don't lock me out. I'm going to be just a few minutes late. Please don't lock me out. And he didn't. He left the door open for me. But I would record his lectures because the way that he delivered it was so interesting. But he spoke really fast. And so sometimes he was really hard to follow. And so I would take a recorder and I would record his lectures, and then I would listen to them, before each class. I would listen because I had an hour commute, and it was just enough time to listen to his lecture again. And he was an interesting professor, but as far as what I learned in high school, growing up in traditional public school, zilch.
Yeah.
Nothing of importance, nothing, and nothing ever related to any other subject. It was like history never overlapped into science,
Right.
and science never overlapped into history. It was just always a separate subject, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not really, it's not a separate subject at all. There is a lot of overlap, and I think that that's often missed in the school system.
So there was just no experience of at any grade level where history wasn't kind of an afterthought. It was just like it was like a have to.
It's an obligatory. This is on the checklist. You've got to, the state says you have to take this class, so you have to take this class.
It's awful.
Was it not like that where you grew up?
So yeah, okay. So it was a bit. Here's the thing: something I took for granted that I didn't really think much about at the time. I liked the shows my dad liked, and he would have an In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy and Nova and stuff like that, and National Geographic, and I was interested in ruins and dinosaurs, like I thought every boy was. But by the time school rolled around, and when I was in 5th grade, I started the violin, and kind of some things overlapped. One was, it's kind of funny. So there was that gifted and talented program, and these people who I think are quite mediocre give you the tests. And so at first they're like, hey, we want you to take this test, but I don't do well with tests. And so I did badly, and they're like, well, you're not gifted and talented. And I'm like, all right, well, screw you. And it's like, fine. And so I'm just apparently like everyone else out here. And I grew up in
my report card always said talks too much.
I don't think you talk enough most of the time, but hey. So I got told I wasn't gifted and talented, and I started the violin, and I'm in a very blue collar people graduate, and in this neighborhood, it's in this whole county, you don't live much further than a mile from where you went to school, and that's it. That's what you do here. So I end up, punchline is, by the time junior high rolls around, now they're not calling it gifted and talented. Now they're just calling it advanced, or they're calling it honors. But it's not honors because it had nothing to do with grades. It just had to do with like whether or not you could follow, if you could do it. And so I ended up in so what's interesting about my high school experience, even though it was in my junior high and high school, I'm in the same school system that everyone's in. However, my classmates are identically the same pretty much for 7 hours a day, because I end up in the honors or the advanced versions of social studies, history, whatever. And because of, it turns out I was playing the violin well, I ended up in this chamber group. And so my day, unlike a lot of high school students, was actually with the same 100-something people between all the classes. There's like basically from 7th grade through graduation, I was around. I could move between friend groups, and I never thought that I was popular or anything, but my education, it meant that history was a little better, English was a little better, we would go over plays. We had a really good theater department, which I didn't know was a big deal. That's where I learned how to do construction and remodeling and stuff like that. Cause we had our, our honors English teacher was also a kind of a to-do director. He did plays and he did commercials in the Twin Cities. And so I did not know how special it was that I was learning how to build sets from the people who do the Guthries and the children's theater. Like the actual professional set designers are there, and we're building like snow machines and fog machines and making elevators to make
Right.
singers jump out. And so
Right. And
lighting.
history, but like for your your history experience, what was that like?
Yeah, so every single one of these talented and gifted people who are really out of the box thinkers and have the same questions about religion and philosophy and like why this, that, whatever. We're not only in the history class able to ask these questions amongst ourselves, but we're able to carry it through our whole day. So we're dialoguing throughout the whole day for almost 6 years, and then we're hanging out at night, and we're dialoguing, and we don't know that that's different. We don't know that that's special. I didn't know that.
To you, that's normal. That's so different from most high school experiences. You know that, right? I mean, you've got to know that now.
You know what's so funny is that no one's ever asked me the question. You're literally the first person, and this is literally the first time I've kind of actually pieced it together. I've never talked about it. I've never thought about it until you asked. But I think about what you just said about the kind of classes you're in and just nobody caring, and you're not seeing the same people. And I realized that part of what really made the difference in my structured environment was being able to carry on our history questions with each other. Like we would just get together and we're like, so what do you think of the Septuagints and the creation of the Catholic Church and how the heck they put all this together?
That's not normal. That might be normal for some, but that's not your typical high school experience. Like that's not, typically the bell rings and it's like a movie. It's like you stepped in an ant bed, it's people are flying out as fast as they can. And
yeah, we were in the theater.
Where I grew up, it was really different because the town that I grew up in had a bunch of had several high schools.
Okay.
And so it was
that
kind of like
huge.
it was kind of big. It was kind of segregated a little bit. And then it was surrounded by all of these small towns that also had high schools that were all within like 15, 20 minutes. And so your friend groups varied for the most part. Mm-hmm. And then, you go through different phases and you have different friend groups, or at least I did. But no, it's not. I didn't sit around and ponder Tartaria after school in 8th grade. That was not on my to-do list.
No, well, we weren't doing Tartaria then. It was more like we just had questions because things didn't add up or whatever. And we would just be asking the questions and then.
That's awesome, though.
What?
That's awesome.
Yeah. But we didn't know it was special because we were busy trying to like ride home on the bus and not get beat up. And and we weren't just
those kids. Poor guys.
So we were like, so there were definitely like nerds. Like, here's the thing: we were the theater people, we were the music people, we weren't the band people, we weren't and band's getting a little out there, but we were the orchestra people, and we were we definitely had friends within our friend group that were like, yeah, that's the nerd. That's the nerd. And we weren't the nerds. We were just like, we were the goth. We were the what's going to be grunge, or what's going to be, heavy metal, or whatever was going on, or death metal, whatever was going on that was not considered mainstream. Violent femmes. We were all those people. And like, for instance, the minute they had a 17 plus Bondage a Go-Go, like the minute we could all go to Bondage a Go-Go, which is this club that, obviously you can tell from their theme, it was pretty funky. And this is like early 90s, right? And so we're doing all our weird theater stuff. The bell would ring, and by 10th grade, we're sitting in the lofts amongst all these crazy techno, pyro, snow, whatever we're making for theater. We're sitting up in the lofts and we're having all these weird conversations and trying to figure out historically we're taking what we're reading, but then we all had kind of a hunger for wanting to know more. And
Yeah.
also, then also, how are we going to bounce these ideas off of each other, or like what are we coming up with
Hmm.
based on what we're reading? So it was a great cosmic salon. That's what it really was, a cosmic
Yeah.
salon.
Like it. It sounds like it.
It
So
didn't
I
stop
want to
people from
switch
smoking.
gears just a little bit because I kind of want to get your take. I know. So you've authored a book,
Yeah.
the first edition. We'll call it
Yeah.
edition one,
Yeah.
called It's Not Aliens Worse.
It's us discovering our lost history. Kind of a long title.
It's us discovering our lost history. So I saw a UFO once, and I don't
Um,
know. I'm just saying, I know what I saw, and
yeah.
there was a witness. I wasn't the only one, and I know it was there, and I know what I saw.
Right.
And this person saw the same thing I did.
Okay.
And that was confirmed after like 20 years. I actually just text that person and was like, "Do you remember this?"
Mm-hmm.
So it was confirmed. We saw the same thing.
Okay.
And this thing had no sound. And this is 2001, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. Something like that. 2002. And this big orange light like just like hovered over the tree line really, really slow. And it was very low and very huge and very bright, and there was no sound. It was just like the sun almost,
Okay.
just hovering. And then it just zoomed off into space, like just gone. No sound, no nothing, completely impossible.
Okay.
Like broke physics in my mind in that moment. I was like, "Well, physics just broke. That's not normal." Like they just broke physics, whatever that was.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? How do you explain that?
I don't know. So for everyone listening, so right before my book came out, I had been contacted in the desert. I'd gone a couple times and met a lot of the people I, you know, think of and wrote on and whatever. And the last time I was there, um, Alex Johnson, who does the Camp Pendleton night vision goggles, he makes them and builds them. These things are, this year it was incredibly powerful. There was an upgrade of, anyway, super powerful technology. So we're laying back and all these people are oohing and ahhing at the sky and whatever. And now I'm about to go to Big Rock or Giant Rock and see actual UFOs, like just in the air, the triangle lit ones. And I'm going to see that. And it's like after 3 hours, we were like, we should, like, let's go. I guess we watched them for 3 hours. But the night vision goggles, what blows my mind was laying back and seeing not one or two weird things or one thing like zigzagging here and there, like define all physics, like you just said. What I thought was crazy was you put on these night vision goggles and you're looking up in the sky, and what you see is essentially, they're not Moths, it's not satellites, it's not planes, it's not jets. You're watching a lot of weird shit fly at really weird angles and move way up in the sky. And it's not one or two things. You can lay back and basically watch this stuff, and it's dozens of objects and things that are not following the laws of physics. And so I don't know what to tell you about that experience, because up until then I hadn't been to Giant Rock yet, or Big Rock. I hadn't seen the UFOs in person, but here I am laying back with like 8 people, and we all have goggles on, and we're all watching, really. And this is stuff thousands, tens of thousands of feet. This is miles high in the sky. These aren't low flying UFOs of any kind, but again, these are things that are zigzagging. They're not moving the way they should. They're not small objects. They're not Moths. It's not like some light.
And I'm going to interrupt you right there
Yeah,
and just point out that if normal civilians can go do that,
yeah.
then there is no doubt that the government knows.
Oh yeah. Well,
You know, and they're slowly coming around. I think that the government's like trying to warm us up to the idea, maybe that
that's optimistic.
they that they exist. What do
I
you
hope
think
so.
about like the orbs? Because those are different.
They are different. It's interesting. So they're specific, you know, is it that they're like a specific drone? It's a specific clear organization that is utilizing these. It's not like a technology like everyone has airplanes. It seems like, okay, someone's come up with a drone that is specifically, or an orb that is specifically to some culture, military, secret something, and they seem to all behave the same way. They all,
You think it's
again,
a
it
drone?
doesn't,
That's what
what?
you're saying? You think it's a drone?
No, I'm saying like you can go out and buy a drone, and there's lots of different drones.
No, no, no,
But
no. I'm not talking about the drones. I'm talking about the orbs, the
right,
colorful things in the sky that change colors and shapes and get big and small. And
well, that's what I'm saying is that it seems like in the world of UFOs, it seems like the technology behind this specific kind of the behavior patterns and the personality of the orbs themselves seem to be of one manufacturer. They seem to be of one kind. They seem to be from one source. It's not like, you know, you can go out and I use using just drones as an example. If there's a lot of different kinds of drones, right? But these orbs all seem similar, like it's one group. It's not just suddenly there's a bunch of factions of UFOs that have orbs. It seems that's what makes me wonder more about the origin. What group of higher advanced anythings are using specifically orbs? Why orbs? Why?
that's
Why?
it. That's what I'm asking is what are they and where did they come from and why are they here and what are they doing and who sent them? And are they sentient? Do you feel like there's some sort of sentience behind them or do you feel that they're, I don't
I
know,
think
some sort of atmospheric phenomenon? Do you think that I just feel like a drone is a solid substance and these don't appear to be solid.
I think that a lot of times when we look at sentient, I like that in that it's a way of thinking where we'll look at a technology and go, hey, we're going to make this technology intelligent, or it has high functioning, or AI, or whatever. On the other hand, what if the orb is really an extension of a consciousness? So what if it's just being remoted, and wherever the orb is, it's a way to, you think of like remote viewing or something. What if it's not that it's sentient itself? What if it's just able to be an extension of an existing being's consciousness?
Ooh, that's an interesting thought. Sort of like we are,
Yeah, exactly.
right? I mean, if you think about it, if we are all part of the same creator and we're all one, you know, and we're just minds of the universe.
Okay, so here's a rabbit hole. You ready?
Oh God. Let's
Okay.
let's keep in mind it's we're 38 in.
Okay, fine. This will be a fast. This is a fast one. I'm going to just structure it and see what you think.
Oh God.
Okay, so I've pointed out before. We have all indications that in the quantum world, we know that we can observe a particle or and not have an effect that we're not supposed to have on the subatomic world. And we've also there's solid
Why do you say
indication.
we're not supposed to have?
Well,
Why'd you throw that in there?
because the whole Schrodinger thing, the whole idea of you know, physics was supposed to be independent of consciousness, and when they proved that the observation is the cat dead in the box is not is if a tree
The
falls
answer
in the
is
forest.
yes.
Yeah, so we affect the duality, the duality of the location of like subatomic particles being in two places at once. The whole the you know, the whole idea that our intent and our observation can create uh, something we
A
can,
change.
or a
And
change.
the observer effect. It can affect
Yeah,
the outcome of a situation. We
yeah, and that's
can
a
basically in the double slit experiment that was what was proved was the when the particles were shot toward the wall or when the what was it light? was it light beams or
Yeah.
lasers were shot at the wall when they were observed. When they were not observed, they were waves. Observed, they were particles, and created just random particle spots on the wall. So it just observing, the act of observing changes the outcome.
Yeah. So that being said, and they've already proven out that even at a subcellular level, we're talking about nuclear cold fusion happening within a human. Basically, everything that we understand about our biological system, collective consciousness, and this quantum world isn't entirely, like, we don't have a full grasp on it, right? So,
Like, we're barely, are you kidding? We're like barely grasping the concept of consciousness now. We're so far from true understanding, and like we're so far from it. We're
yeah.
getting there.
Right. So I had this thought in here, which I know for everyone listening, we are going to get to some news and some other things here soon in our Belize expedition, but maybe.
Welcome to the Jared and Kristi show.
Maybe we will, maybe we
Where
won't.
we just sit around and talk about esoteric shit.
So we back up your comment. Great. So we digressed. We went on another rabbit hole for the. I was gonna make a comment about you were talking about, so perhaps the orbs, possibly there's a conscious extension to who you are. Oh, collective consciousness and God source. This is my point. This was the point. This is the question, the rabbit hole. So, and we've talked a little bit.
I've ever heard you. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt again. This is the first time I've ever heard you refer to source as God's source. I've never heard you say that before. Interesting.
Well, okay,
let's jump in this hole. Get after it.
Okay, well, so here's the thing for everyone listening. That is a way of speaking for me that came very early in philosophizing on things, and I'm not saying it's not an accurate way to do it. It's just that in this context, it's appropriate. So one of the things we talked about, I've said, like, what if there's a collective consciousness where an observation changes something or an outcome, but what if enough people, so for instance, there's a lot of different modalities for what God is what, and they believe in one thing or the other. Well, if the entire thing is collective consciousness, and if you have not one, but you have, it doesn't matter, like one person is infinite, but if you have a collection of humanity and generationally that say there's this particular entity, and they can therefore just by banging on the blinky board and their collective consciousness, they may create all the characteristics of what that entity would be if it was an actual entity, but it's their consciousness and their will and their observation that they are literally pulling out of the ether themselves, and their collective directional intent is creating what is that entity, that God. So what if what we identify as, and say we're all collectively one, this was the rabbit hole. What if what if we're not? What if we do have a source, but now that we're out here, our ability to will or create something out of nothing, what if we can, based on our connections and the connections we make, like for instance, anytime, biblically speaking, anytime there's three people present, they're in the presence of God and whatever. But what if it's a philosophy, what if it's just an observation that there's just enough ether energy that if you have three people, you can reach out and manifest something and create something. But individually, yeah, we're all part of something, but what if it isn't a conscious entity? What if there is a base pool of ether, a base line of collective something that, like you're saying, it's like we're drawing out the idea is that it's a God source. The idea is that there's an intelligence or
do you feel, well, I'm going to stop you there for a second. Like, do you, because that was a deep rabbit hole, and I don't want to lose people.
Sorry.
Yeah. So if we back up just a little bit, so because we're talking about the orbs.
Yeah.
Right. We're talking about the orbs, and we're talking about
consciousness comes next.
and we're talking about consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you're saying, like, what if they're not conscious but tied to one source, right?
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
what we are. We are tied to one source, but we have individual and collective consciousness. Like, we have
Yeah.
our own individual consciousness, and then we have the ability to participate in collective consciousness. And so, who are
Wow.
we to say that these orbs, if they are sentient, aren't the same? Maybe they're connected to the same source that we are. They're
Hmm.
just in a different form and likely a higher level of consciousness.
Or it could be dimensional, or it could be
Dimensional. That was going to be another question I asked is, do you think that they're interdimensional?
it's either we are already experiencing other dimensions, or we're not understanding or what we're observing, that we're actually experiencing that and we don't understand it, or it's something else. So they could be, if it is dimensional or timeline, a lot of people like to go on like, okay, is it a timeline thing? But I don't know. If we're all connected to a source, the question is the source a higher consciousness, or is it just like is it really truly the elements of energy? Is it truly the element of what becomes a soul, or what becomes humanity, or becomes consciousness? Is it actually more simplex? Is it a simpler baseline that it isn't or was an intent of any higher benevolent or semi-benevolent or vengeful or shitty joking entity? It's just that there's
I don't get that feeling at all. Like, I don't get that. And I have not had any personal, you know, encounters with the things, but I have family that have, and I don't get that I just don't feel threatened by
like they're not here
whatever
to
it
hurt
is.
you.
Yeah. And also, I just feel like if they were going to do it, they would have done it by now. And I think that there's a purpose behind why we're here on this planet. And that kind of leads us into like RKOX and what we're doing. So this is probably we're halfway in. Let's take a minute and talk about that. So coming up, we have a Belize tour in May. The 27th, we leave May 27th, and we come back on June 5th. So it'll be 10 days and 9 nights. We'll go to several sites of ruins, Mayan ruins. There will be daily opportunities for different modalities of awakening. We can call it that. Yoga, meditation, breath work. I don't know, Jared, what else do we have? We've got a really exciting cave tour. Don't get me started on the cave.
I'm pretty excited
That'll
about the
never
cave.
end. That's a rabbit hole.
Well, there's also that we are going, one of the sites we're going to is the location where the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull was found. That's nearby our amazing cave tour. So we are going to be seeing Mayan ruins, but one of them is probably the most significant for those of you who are interested. The Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, of course, has been on Ancient Aliens and a million different things. And there have been other crystal skulls, but the most famous one will be one of the places that we stop to look at and spend some time with. And the breath work and the other things that you mentioned, I mean, that's part of this tour, is being able to collectively enjoy it together, but also maybe be in a different consciousness or space. Not that you have to do it, but I do think that adds an element
Sure.
of connection.
For sure. 100%. And also we'll throw in there, there's also going to be an opportunity to participate in humanitarian work, which is sort of, part of where my heart is. So we started some work in a village where the ruins that RKOX has done work on are. And so we've got great relationships with the villagers there. And so we've started some humanitarian work that we're going to go and continue when we get down there. And so there will be opportunities to participate in that. Everything is optional. You can sleep all day if you want to and sit by the pool. We don't really give a shit what you do. If you decide that you just want to drink martinis all day and kick your feet up, you're more than welcome to do it.
Yeah. But if you want to do the rest, and we can join you for martinis later in the evening, come and do it all. And it's not that it isn't, too far away, but it isn't you got a plan. If you want to come, please come to rqx.com and take a look, because end of May is around the corner.
Right around the corner. And so you can hop on rqx.com, fill out the registration forms. We're taking payments online. Space is limited. So we do have a wait list. So that hasn't kicked in yet, thank God. So but space is limited. So sign up as soon as you can.
Please.
And that kind of leads us into the next thing. And I know that we're live, and I'm just throwing this out there, but I kind of feel like we should talk a little bit about like how we are right here where we are. And I think it's important to acknowledge, when we're talking about physics and we're talking about information and, we're talking about abilities and the things that we are able to do through, certain modalities and practices like breath work and yoga and meditation and things like that. I think it's important to recognize that we're so unplugged and misaligned from not only the planet, but who we are and the people around us. And I think that technology has made it even harder to connect with people. I find that I see it becoming harder and harder for people to just make eye contact in the grocery store. It's just a weird, bizarre time to be alive. But the way that all of this has kind of happened, this show and the progress of RKOX is very synchronicitous, I feel like. And
that's true.
Yeah. And so I think we should talk a little bit about that. So Jared, why don't you start a little bit of just, kind of a brief overview of how you started RKOX?
Okay. Well, it came from writing that book, and I always thought that I could practically put the biohacking and my general interests all into one category and go at history and go at self-discovery and go at self-awareness and go at consciousness, that all of it is related. There isn't a separate category for history or for consciousness. If we want to experience it, even if we're not synth elites, I think that, or just doing one kind of breath work, I do think that all of it relates together. And that led me down to, okay, so if we learn our history and we're also applying these things that I was doing personally, I thought, hey, let's see if we can't do it full time in a way that is going to benefit people. And all the pieces weren't there. Like, is it going to be education or humanitarian? It seemed like it was all going to have to be done. A lot of the ruins are in places where people need help, and they're not in America. So all of it was kind of on the table. And so over the years I had met, and from the time my book came out, I knew that there were people I wanted to meet, like Tom Elmore, that there were people that Dennis Stone introduced us, but the kind of people that had the passion and the drive to want to apply technologies and their own questioning to not just history, but how they live day to day. So I ended up podcasting a ton and working more on writing. And I did a lecture in Utah, and one of the participants, it was a big kind of it's actually a crypto convention, and I sat and did a panel and talked a little bit about, anyway, this gentleman had 7,000 acres in Belize, and he had Mayan ruins, he thought. And at this point, I had already met Tom, and I had already developed a lot of interesting people that I knew had the ability to do the kind of explorations, to get out in the field, to really just get out and do the physical labor of finding ruins and finding our history. And also just that was it. That was the initial elements of what was going to be RKOX. And so we did an expedition. This is about 2.5 years ago now, almost. And we were in the jungle for 3 weeks. And prior to that, we spent months looking at getting satellite imaging and analyzing for what could be potential ruin sites. And there we were day one so it's crazy. I put 10 people together in a team, 5 became the core of it. And we went on the jungle in day one. We were 3.5 miles in the jungle and we literally find a full-on archaeological theft site where they're probably stealing like $2.5 million worth of artifacts, which we don't know that day. We just show up with a bushman. We look like we're out of Indiana Jones. I mean, everyone's got their packs, but this was our first target site that we were going to with the owner and his guides. And
did you walk up and you were like, oh shit, what do we do?
Yeah, because they could have been there. The people who are stealing these artifacts are worth hundreds of thousands, or in this case, it turns out to be a few $1 million. And we could have been harmed. It could have been bad if they were there, because there were multiple tents, 3 or 4 tents. I mean, we have it all on video, but we're talking about they had been working there for months. This was not like weeks. This was months, because they had dug down an archaeological layer over a large pit area. Then they had dug down again in a smaller portion. Then they had dug what was more like double grave size pits that went down anywhere from 8 to 12 feet. And they had already started becoming waterlogged from the water level in Belize is really high because of the ocean. So they clearly had been working there for a long, long time. And it was just crazy. So ArchaeoX isn't called ArchaeoX yet, but here we are in the field, having used satellite imaging and gone adventuring in a land that had only been explored by British map survey people for like 100 years ago, 120 years ago. And so we were the first people to really even go for it, to really look for what could be ruins. And so proved out the concept is that, yeah, could I put together a team of people? Could we use a bunch of existing technologies? Could I coordinate an expedition? And could we, there's so many Zoom meetings. There was so many, we had doctors involved. We had med kits to put together. I mean, like all the logistics of what ArchaeoX is going to be. It went together, and some things went. Here's the thing. Had a really great success that day one. But on the other hand, there were some fails, some awful fails. And I would definitely screen differently, which I did, the next time. So we come back with all the data, had to hit a pause button for a minute, but then hit the ground running after a few weeks. And then you and I got to Belize again. So that was the start of it. I don't know. What kind of details would you want to know about the start?
Okay, so I'll take it from here. I think once we made it to Belize, I had no idea what we were going to do. I mean, I knew what we were going to do.
You did. You just winged it.
I conceptually knew what we were going to do.
You had a knife and you were ready to use it. That was it. No organ harvesting, no kidnapping. You just had a knife and you're like, I'm going to go, but I think I might die.
Who travels to the jungle without a knife, guys? I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, but she had it at the airport. You had it at the truck rental, at the car rental. You were like ready to go. It's like, I don't know these people. I'm going to cut them now.
I know. I'm like, I need both kidneys for now. So yeah. I plan to keep them, but so I was prepared for whatever.
Yeah.
So we get there. Yeah. So we get there and we get down there. I finally start to wrap my mind around what I'm doing there, after I get there. And it was an amazing experience. But so then we came home, after, what was it? 10 days? How long were we?
It was a 10 or 11 days.
11 days, something like that. It was a while. So we were out there for a little bit, and so we got, and life kind of all just pauses when you're out there doing that work, because we were so plugged into the village and the humanitarian work and how can we help in doing these things and uncovering these ruins and walking the LiDAR and just doing the work, collecting the data, doing the work. And so then we come home and we're like back into life, right? And we were sort of in similar but not really similar situations. And so we come home and we're kind of right back into the thick of things, and we actually went a while without talking because both of us were sort of like just knee deep in shit at the time. And
That's
so
one
his
way to put it.
energy was not helping my energy, and my energy was not helping his energy. And so we actually had to put work on, we had to put this on, like we didn't, but we kind of did. I mean, I did. I had to
We
put it
did.
on pause
We
for
did.
him. I did. Yeah, we
We,
just had to put it on pause for a minute and deal with life things. And
yeah.
and so we did that. So we, we kind of, we put work on hold, and we seldom spoke, and we dove back into life, and tried to walk through the things that we were walking through with, integrity, um and we did that. And then similarly, those situations both ended for us, and then it was like, okay, well, now what, you know and so then we started saying, like, okay, well, we're going to do this podcast, like, let's get this started, like, now, we can do this thing. And so we're going to do this podcast, and then now we're currently working ourselves out of our day jobs. And so we have literally bought into the law of attraction.
That's one of it. Yeah. While you're talking, I was thinking about this. I don't like to rewrite our history, but I think back to some of our early morning coffee conversations, and I'm thinking, and again, individually we had, and I know the reality is that we did not have the individual bandwidth or collective bandwidth. We could have, but it's so hard to not go back and rewrite and go, man, if we had started this, if we just started it sooner, I wonder if it just would have been too abrasive.
No, I think it would have been. And I think everything happens exactly as it should. So I think the timing of everything, we had to put the thing on pause. And so we did that. And then we were able to focus on our personal lives, and walk through those situations that we needed to walk through, and figure
Yeah.
those things out. And then we did that. And
Yeah.
then, once those things were kind of figured out, then we came back together and we're like, okay, so back to what we were talking about 8 months ago.
Huh.
Do you think we should do that now? And it was kind of like, yeah, I think we should. And it's just been the way that this has happened, even though we're just now at the very beginning of this process, right? So we're just now at
Yeah.
the very beginning of this process. This is only like our 7th or 8th episode. I don't remember. We're still working out kinks. I'm still figuring out website things, and we're doing this thing, but it's
Your
just like
mic's still a bitch.
everything, huh?
Your mic's still a bitch.
My mic
Your mic
every
stand.
day
Your
just
mic
wants to
stand.
fight me
Yeah.
every damn day. Anyways, so everything that has happened, it's kind of like it's been just one synchronicity after another synchronicity after another synchronicity. It's just like falling in our laps. And so it's just, to me, for me, after years of learning and hearing and studying and reading about the law of attraction, and how our metaphysical universe operates, and how our consciousness kind of is operating within it, and starting to figure out myself a little bit more, and how my mind operates, with my body and soul, and I'm just trying to figure myself out. And so I think that the things that we're trying to connect and we're trying to pull together and we're trying to do in this situation, it's like we're living the I don't even know what you call it, like we're walking the walk. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I've spent all this time learning about manifesting and creating my own reality, and now I have this burning desire. It's like, okay, now's the time, like, I'm gonna do this thing.
Hmm.
And so that's where we're at now. So now we're both we'll be podcasting. This will be our last one, I think, separately.
It might be. Yeah.
Maybe, possibly, we'll see. And then we'll have our own studio set up and ready to go. It's currently under construction right now. So we're having
It
the
is.
podcast separately, but we'll be able to do this together. And that's something we've also manifested. And it's just one thing after another landing in our laps.
What do
And
you
so
think of
it's
all that? Oh, go ahead.
no.
I wanted to
Me?
ask you about, well, I was going to ask you about the manifesting when you have a break, but keep going.
Yeah, no, ask away because
Well,
I'll just keep going.
do you think, no, you won't. She will. What I have different thoughts over the last, so many things keep happening. Oh, yeah. So what? So we're live. So whoever listens to this in the future, great. But do you find it, I know we've talked about it being odd, or that this is like it's one thing after another, but do you have any new feelings about all the things that keep going well? Do you ever have like, do you have any new perspectives on it? I think I
Since
do, but I'm curious about you.
uh since no, I mean since last time we talked about it, not really, no new perspectives. I've been solid for a long time with this.
Have
Like
you?
I think that well, I mean, as of what is today, 3/5, as of maybe 2 weeks ago,
Yeah, I was gonna say it'd be fair if you said 2 weeks ago. That would make sense. I just
yeah, like as of a couple weeks ago, it was just like I was kind of put in a position where it was like I had to make a choice. And this is what I chose. And so, yeah, I think that as far as perspectives go, I'm all in, fully committed, both feet. I just jumped off in the deep end and I'm manifesting the hell out of all the things. And I think that the higher we can vibrate, do all the inner work and the things
Mhm.
necessary to vibrate, and that includes protecting your energy, which is a huge one. That is a huge, huge thing. It's protecting your energy.
Yeah,
Like if we're not protecting, if I'm allowing people in my life that are affecting my energy levels, and you're
yeah,
allowing people in your life, then it's going to affect one another. It's going to affect what we're doing. It's going to affect our energy feedback loop. And so it's super important. And and he and I've had this conversation. It's so important for us to be really protective over the
yeah.
energy circles and who we allow in, and just make sure that we protect that space, and keep it, because we want to have those solid relationships, and we want to make sure that we stay on track with what we're doing. We don't want static and setbacks.
No, and also tuning the things that are working. It's interesting to have. I feel like so many ways in our past we've had to um, be protective of not letting just bad or more bad. It's like more bad. It's not just bad. It's just more of this. It's like, why am I doing this? So like, let's not let in more bad. I feel like one of the shifts that I'm really appreciative of, not appreciative, gratitude. I don't know how to put it, is that, or how to really define it, but the idea that we're actually, what's really great, I guess, is having, when you say protective of that that space. What I find really interesting is now to be in a space where it's not, oh man, what's the next torpedo?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's like I have something else that I don't ever want to get hit. I have something to protect. I have something. It's not just a defense mode for
Mm-hmm.
just basic. Do I still have a heartbeat? Now
It's
there's
proactive.
some, yeah. Now there's something else. It's like everything we're doing appears to me now to be. It's like, oh wait, no. There's, not only am I going to not let these things get in the way, but now it's like, how do I continue to, what does thriving and growing look like? How do you tune it? Because when it's off, and then it's like, oh wait, no, this is the right space, or this isn't, and it's like, okay, now it's interesting because I'm not being reactive to just like one feeling or anything. It's like, okay, it's fun and really powerful to actually be able to like, hey, do you see this, or do you think this, or
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know Yeah. And so
Well,
that's
and have the validation, and it's, and the validation is truth. Like the validation resonates, and you're like, okay, I'm not
yeah.
crazy.
Well,
Or
see, you go finish that thought first, please.
no, that was it. Like
Oh,
it just like it's not so much validation. It's just more confirmation that there are like-minded thinkers and people who you have the ability to connect with that may be outside of your current social group. That maybe if you feel like you're not connecting at a level that you want to connect with, like change your group, and find a different group. And I think
yeah.
that's what we've done. I think we've changed our groups. I think we found a different group, and it's kind of, it's when you find that and you have that, and then you're able to grow from that, and build from that and create, like that creative flow. Like
Yeah.
when we're working on the website, or when we're planning trips or expeditions, when we're doing these different things, and this creative energetic flow that happens between us, it's like, you know minutes turn into hours, and before we know it, we haven't eaten, and it's like, but we've gotten so much done,
Yeah.
and I'm loving every minute of it, because it does not feel like work. It just doesn't
No.
feel like work.
Well, and just to back up on part of it is when you said about the confirmation or the
Validation.
yeah, what's interesting is that there's a layer where it's like, okay, hey, do you think this? Do I think that? I think we've both been in the weeds on so many different levels where it's like you don't get a chance to breathe, you don't get a chance to think, you don't get a chance to. So it's like, no, I sense I'm in this, or we're in this space, but then it's like, okay, on one level, there's the wait, I'm so used to either being combative or fortified or dealing with some
Hmm.
really like the most fun.
Negative energy.
Yeah, the absolute base worst of it. So on one hand, it's like, I think we're someplace else. And then it's like, okay, we're someplace else. But the point isn't to validate. To me, I'm thinking, no, I think validation is great, everyone. I'm not trying to get rid of validation or anything. But part of it's like, okay, wait, I've been so busy not being able to be talented or present in this space that you can actually thrive and grow and be creative
Yes.
and enjoy. So on one hand, it's like, wait, is this what this space is? And then if I ask you, or if we're going at it, it's like, yeah, we're in this space. It's like, oh shit, what can I do with it? Like, oh wait, now I get to be in this space. I don't have to be fortified. I don't have to be defensive. I don't have to be all the things I've been doing. In a way, it's like, oh shit, all the things that I would have wanted to do, I can do, because you know what I mean?
And
Like,
it seems like such a big deal, but
yeah,
it's not. Like at the end of the day, it's so simple. It's really just a mindset and a shift in
yeah,
perspective. Like, it's kind of just making up your mind, what you I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into those weeds,
yeah.
but I think that when you're able to let go, when you're able to surrender to source, to your higher self,
Okay,
to what the universe has in store for you. Like when you're able to ebb and flow with the universe and kind of ride the wave instead of you swimming against it, you
yeah.
know, or I don't know why I compare everything to Mother Nature. I compare a lot to being like in a tornado.
You're big on
Get
tornadoes right now. I can't. I don't know
I
what's
know.
gonna
I
come
think it's
next.
because I live in Oklahoma. I mean, I live in a place where there's tornadoes. Um,
Yeah.
Anywho, so uh, I think that like when you're able to just kind of like step away from the chaos of life and
Mhm.
breathe, like you were talking about, like when you haven't had a chance for so long to just breathe, like
Yeah.
you don't have the brain space or capacity to even think about like how you feel or what is,
Yeah.
like much less have any sort of creative energy whatsoever. Like
Yeah.
there's like no capacity for creative energy when you're in survival mode, right? Like it's
Mm.
Maslow's hierarchy. It's just simple. And
Yeah.
so I feel like when you're, when you're in survival mode, you're not as creative. You don't, I didn't create a whole lot for a while. And
Yeah.
now I'm back in creating all kinds of different things. And I think that that is part of manifesting, is creativity, is just
Yeah.
knowing that we are creative beings and we have this creative energy, all of us, flowing through us. And it's just figuring out how to reconnect with what we're naturally supposed to be connected to.
Yeah. There isn't there hasn't been a lot of time in the last, we might as well say, a few years to really stay, other than in moments or briefly
Mhm.
or for a season, to maybe what is a part of our core essence or our core spirit, our core. So it really okay, it's not permanent, but it really does. I don't want to say damaged. I mean, that sounds negative, but at the same time, it's like there's this um handicapping of who you are,
Mhm.
and that is detrimental to a point where it becomes frustrating in that you second guess what was once your nature, and
Mhm.
now it's been, you've had to beat it out of yourself, or you've had to bury it so far. It makes what should be natural decisions or next
Mhm.
steps not seem natural.
And it makes it seem, it like you said, you second guess yourself, like you second guess, you often second guess your own sanity, or your own sense of reality,
Yeah.
which is the worst to be in,
Yeah.
but I think that you're right. I think that when you come out of that, the further removed from those spaces, that you become, I think the more, if you're practicing, the
Yeah.
more you're connected you become with yourself. And that's an active thing. That's a choice. You have
Yeah.
to actively do that. And it doesn't mean that you're perfect. When you wake up, doesn't make you perfect. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be triggered. It doesn't mean that you're not going to throw a tantrum every now and then. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a little bit of road rage, once a week. But
Once a
like,
week. What did you
I'm
say?
just
Once a week?
kidding. I don't know. I don't know.
Just I
I,
just all
I
right.
try not to drive that much.
All right.
But I think that like the further removed from those negative spaces, those spaces that aren't safe, the spaces that
Yeah.
make you feel like you can't be who you are naturally, like who you are on the inside. And I think the older we get, the more in tune some of us become to who we are naturally. And it becomes harder and harder to fight that off,
Yeah.
and to not be authentically yourself. Because I think that when you're not authentically yourself, you're doing an injustice, not just to yourself, but to all of those people around you,
That's true.
because you're suppressing your natural abilities to connect with other people. If you're not being true to yourself, you're missing connections
Yeah, there's a
with
lot of symptoms.
other authentic people.
Well, and here's the thing: if you're the say say you're even authentically liking one thing or another, if you aren't really making an effort to truly be the you, it doesn't mean the best. It just means you might enjoy some aspects of being conscious about something,
Hmm.
and you might really enjoy the shit what out of whatever the two or three things. The thing that seems to be interesting is that if you're not actually really striving to know yourself and to be present, to, it doesn't matter broken or good or not, whatever, you just gotta, I think it affects who you draw towards you.
Oh, for
and
sure.
and in the end, it's like, okay, you could be really aware of a number of things, but if you're lying, or if you're not lying to anyone in particular, but if you're not being present to yourself, then you're you're gonna end up, you could be so adjacent to what could be good for you but not
Hmm.
there,
Hmm.
or you could be there, but if you don't recognize it, then you're gonna miss it. So I think
Hmm.
there's two sides to it. It's like you can you can be being honest, but it's like if you don't fully immerse yourself in it, you're going to keep getting a little bit static. You're going to keep being off.
Well, and that's why I think that's what happens as we get older. It's like I just feel like we have the same, friend groups that you've had for forever, and then you're surrounded just by the same people with the same worldviews and the same perspectives and the same ideas and the same all these things. Right. And so I think your beginning and having come out of the school that you did and the friend group that you did, where you were able to kind of challenge your thoughts and ideas and perspectives is monumental.
I
First
had
of
no
all,
idea.
yeah, it's huge. And but I think that it's hard to step away from what's normal when it's like your whole family is this way and all of the people that are in your life are this way, and
Yeah.
everybody seems to perceive this way and think this way and feel this way, and you're kind of always looked at like you're the black sheep or the loudmouth or the opinionated one, and it's like, no, I'm not. I'm just authentic. Like I cannot ignore the elephant in the room. I just can't do it. Like, can we discuss that big fucking elephant right there? And then once we can talk about that big purple elephant, then we can move on,
Yeah.
but until we do that, I just feel like it's just being fake, you know? And it's just really hard to do that. And I think that authentic relationships and connections are created when you are being your authentic self. And I think that when you're not being your authentic self, you feel a dissonance inside. And I think the older we get, the harder it is to deny that. You either shut yourself down completely and say, I'm just going to ignore who I really am, or
Okay.
you have to let yourself shine. You only have two options, or you just live in suffering.
I don't even know if I think not to get a little caustic, but I think that people get so numb, or they've done such a good job of checking out to numb themselves, and they don't think they're numbing it. It's just like there maybe at some point there was a discomfort or a nervousness or a depression, but I think people over time they get into this ritual of doing the same things every day to basically numb themselves to any conscious. They're not improving, but I don't think they're aware. I wonder how bad it is to
But
just
if they're not aware, then to them, is it bad? If
no.
you're
I
not
don't think it is for them.
aware of it, it's kind of like you're not aware, and we look at it and think it's unfortunate, and we have other thoughts about it, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like Barbara said on one of those episodes, who are we to judge someone else's journey? And she was spot
Oh,
on.
good point. Yeah, no. What Barbara said,
Who are we
you're
to
right.
judge someone else's journey? Everybody has a journey and a mission here. And,
Yeah.
and I don't want to, I know we don't have time to get into this, but on the next episode,
Okay.
I really want to go into this new concept that I am learning about, not going into the light.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we are going to talk to someone about that maybe.
It's strange, and it's a foreign concept, but it seems to be spreading like wildfire. It's like, no, when you die, stay away from the light. It's the soul trap. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought the light was joy and happiness, but it sure does sound like a soul trap.
Not according to Satan. Stay away
Now
from the
that you think
light.
about it, it's kind of like, Satan is the light bearer. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
Okay, we'll get into that next time. And
Yeah, we can get into that next time. But back to the manifesting. So I
yeah,
do think that who you surround yourself with has a great impact on the direction that your life takes and what you're able to draw to you, and the opportunities that you have, for sure.
yeah, I think that's a piece of that's an element of it for sure. And I definitely think that all the elements matter. And optimistically speaking, so there's people who aren't maybe being conscious of one thing or the other. And I do wonder, like, what would it take if what would it add to all of us if everyone was collectively conscious? I mean, and to your point, yeah, maybe not everybody needs to be in order to reach that level of connection with the universe or higher self. On the other hand, it's like, well, what if one of the missing tuning forks, what if one of the missing pieces is just everyone? What if everyone does have to jump in on it? So on one hand, I'd like people to individually wake up. On the other hand, it's like, boy, do I just need you to stand there and resonate, like, at what frequency? And I know you don't like it, but could you do it for at least 5 minutes for me so I could see the other end of the infinite universe?
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be amazing.
Just hold your distractions for 5 minutes, please. I'm halfway to the green octopus platypus god. We have a conversation. We're about to, don't pay attention, focus.
It's so hard. And I feel like the more and more you wake up, especially for someone who's been surrounded by sleepers, and then it's just really hard not to question your reality. It's really hard not to question your sanity. It's hard not to, it's hard not to question yourself. And do what?
Like slip back.
Yeah, not only is it hard not to slip back, but it's hard just to feel certain things inside that don't resonate with the way you're living your life.
Yeah. You know what? Based on that high school thing that I talked about, which I Kristi, I've never actually thought about it or talked about it like that until we actually just talked about it tonight. I'm actually going to have to think about it some more. But one of the things that we did touch on too is that I think it's so easy, like you said, friend groups that last forever that aren't really friend groups. They're just the people you're going to stick around you. So you have somebody in your orbit till you die. But I often wonder, though, like, for instance, as much as I had fun in the high school thing and, fine, we all grow up and we move on and stuff like that. And we still have some friends from our past. But I do think that a lot of our past in that world, I think that is one of our slippery minds. It's like a slippery slope. And I'm thinking more like a minefield of the more we spend time there, it's easy to slip back into some of those really irrelevant, not higher self.
You're right.
You did this when this happened. And it's like, it was high school or
You're
it was
right.
junior high. And it's like, none of this is helpful.
Well, and it's not even high school or junior high. It could be
College,
it could be as simple as like, 6 months ago or last year or last week or whatever, or yesterday.
Yeah.
When you're a person that is awake and you understand a little bit more about the human condition and then you have a little bit more compassion and you have this responsibility, to yourself and humanity to do better and be better and make better choices and be more conscious and be more aware and not engage in that lower vibrating behavior, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really, really difficult not to engage. Sometimes it's very difficult not to give in and engage and just dive into that like toxic, that old, and then it happens and you're like, ew, like that's not me. And that's not me. It's not who I want to be. It's like who this person brings out, and so it is so important who you let in your orbit, because it completely changes the dynamic of who you are when you're not solidified in it, like when you're not far enough removed from whatever that relationship or situationship or whatever it is that you're in, whether it's work or whether it's your home life or whatever it is. When you're not far enough removed from the negativity, you've got to build your positive tank back up almost, your capacity to love and have compassion and patience and be positive and to think in the 5D and not the 3D. It takes time to refill that tank.
Do you feel like, because I know we were going to talk about this a little bit, do you feel, so personal questions. So do you think that you, I don't want you to talk so much about how you might personally slip into that into a specific situation, but do you feel like um when you do, is there, do you think you have to have resolution with some of those 3D things before it, do you think you can do a separation between your
Yes.
consciousness?
Yeah, I do. I think at this point where I'm at now, at this point, it's like I recognize, you know, when I'm in the 3D, you know, and I have to kind of pull myself back out of that. And it could be a slip up, you know, it like yesterday. It could be a slip up yesterday, and I'm like, well, shit, I just went and did a 3D thing, you know, and then it's and then it but that's the thing, that's the great thing about being awake and waking up is you have grace for yourself, you know, that you
Yeah.
know that you're just human and you're doing the best that you can,
Yeah.
and you still have it, that human side to you, like you're not
Right.
living your highest self every single day. Sometimes we're
Yeah.
tired, sometimes we're worn out, sometimes we get some shit news, you know,
Yeah.
it's like every day isn't just unicorns and rainbows and butterflies and, you know, sunny
Yeah.
skies. You know, we have bad days too. And so yeah, sometimes I find myself, I slip back in, but the difference in the old me and the me I am now is I'm able to recognize it a little
Okay.
faster. You know, I'm able to say, oh, I just did that 3D thing, and you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
no, I don't think that I have to have resolution at this point. It's like, okay, it's not about the situation or the other person or any of that. It's about my behavior. And that's the only thing I can control is
Yeah.
myself and my behavior. And so
Okay.
it's more of a recognition that I slipped, you know, not so much, you know, like maybe there's a trigger or there's a reason or there's a whatever, and maybe I'm even justified, you know,
Okay.
but regardless of all of that, I'm still in control of the way I react or respond, you
Okay.
know. And so I think that it's just easier to recognize at this point, like and then I'm like, well, okay, I don't want to do that again, so I'll do better next time. And that's all I do. I don't have to have resolution. It's more like I don't give a shit at this point. Like, I'm human. Get over it. You know, like we're all human. We all mess up. We all make mistakes. It's not the end of the world. Time
Mm,
fixes
mm.
everything. Get
Uh,
over it. It's what it is.
Do you think it fixes everything, or is it just that you just get it's not so much time as it is more of a physical, is it just the distance?
I think it's probably both. I think it's time and distance. I think it's time and it's distance. And I think it's inner work, you know, it's becoming aware of yourself and your accountability and responsibility,
Mhm.
and taking that, you know, and owning it,
Mhm.
and 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 just forgiving yourself and forgiving whoever needs to be forgiven. And then you just let it go and move on. And then go live your best life. And just don't worry about the lower vibrating people. And it's just kind of like, if you want to be in my orbit, here's where my orbit is,
Yeah.
you know, but you've got to vibrate up to it. Like you
Right.
can't just, you can, like, I'm up here, you know, you can't just slide through the trap door unless I open it. Like y- the ladder doesn't come down from, you know what I mean? It's not, I'm not gonna let the ladder down from the attic. I'm just like, I'm up there having a party, and the ladder's not coming down unless you're vibrating high with me.
Then you can just float up there.
Yeah, then you don't even need a ladder. You can just float up, like levitate up with me. It's fine. We can all party together.
You
Love,
just
peace,
walk
and
through the
joy
walls. Walk through
everywhere.
the walls.
You walk through the walls.
So there isn't we didn't do a good job of getting, I don't know. I don't want to change the subject. Are we good? Or I
I
was about
know
to say,
we did well. We didn't get to anything that we were going to talk. We did get to manifesting. It was at the bottom of the list of things that we were going to cover today. So we got
okay,
to one thing, which is great.
okay.
Um, but we are an hour and a half in, so this would be a good time to wrap it up.
So I guess we got to remind everybody to find us on arqx.com and every Wednesday at 8. And of course, we're on a whole bunch of new shows, and we'll have a schedule for that. And we, of course, have an expedition coming up in the end of May into June to Belize, Mayan ruins, crystal skulls, a really exciting cave that really we just should make it a cave tour, really, because that's.
I mean, if that's the only thing you did in 10 days, it would be totally worth it, honestly. Like
Mayans were in the cave, so
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The ruins are amazing. The ruins are amazing too. The ruins are amazing.
And it's where RQX, it's where we do work too. So Kristi, like this is we're taking you someplace we actually have done work. So it's not just you're looking at some ruins.
Right.
Active ruin sites, work sites, and crystal skull sites. Yeah. So, and some great drinking and food and all that. And that's all on arqx.com. And we have a banner ad for that with all the information and all the details, and for you to pay, all on arqx.com.
Yep.
Anything else?
Thanks for listening, guys.
Do we have anything else?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, we're like, yes, we promised the news. I apologize. I said it twice.
No, it's fine. We already apologized. I think
good. Okay, good. We're good. We're good then. I'm going to just say goodnight then to everyone.
Good night.